All right, Trigger Bar Philosopher here. I'm going to today talk about um, my hunting bullet. So I put a short video up and I put a longer video up talking about my elk hunt. And so I want to get into a little bit of just talking about the bullet that I used and sort of some of my thinking. So this is going to be about bullet performance for those of you that are reloading or buying, you know, factory ammunition loaded with these types of bullets. And so just some of my thoughts on that. So first off, let me just kind of talk about what happened in my hunt. So I got it on an elk, and I'll show a little clip right now about my shot, which was pretty cool. And then I'll also show the result of the elk. I had a cow elk tag. The curious thing about this elk, and I'll kind of highlight this now on the video, is that just kind of showing that with the elk that I was able to take down, its head was twisted back around it, so I had a pretty good penetration test. So it actually went in one side of the neck, out the other side of the neck, and then in above its shoulder, and then was actually stuck right on the other side of its above its shoulder, and it had gone through its heart. So what's cool is, and I'll show a picture of this now, but I was able to find this bullet. So I was able to find um, the bullet hadn't, because it had already passed through so much of the meat and hit bones and things like that. It didn't have the energy to get through the elk on a complete, sort of in one side, out, in the other side, in or out again. So that kind of made some things, so that just kind of, showed you what type of performance is acceptable. So what I want to show today is just the result of it. So here is the recovered bullet. You can see it had some deformation with it. I would say it's not great though. Let's just take a quick look over here. I've got my powder charge measurer loaded up, and it's just a pretty accurate scale. So these are Barnes TTSX or tipped TSX hunting bullets, 165 grain for my 308, and shot out of my 308 Winchester. And so if you look at a bullet, straight from this box, it's got that plastic ballistic tip, and then it's a hollow point inside. And they are, again, supposed to be 165 grain, and this is 165 grains. So these are high quality bullets. They're not, certainly not cheap. They're all copper, so you don't get lead in your meat, maybe potentially causing some lead poisoning or something like that. And then because they're all copper, you're not going to lose a jacket or things like that, and so they'll have good penetration. So that's what it should be, is 165 grains. So now let's take a look at what is left of this bullet. And it's 159.3, so it lost basically 0.5 or 5 grains of copper, and that blue tip of ballistic fell off, which really, it means not much happened. And if you also take a look from this perspective, I don't know, I'll kind of show it here. Maybe I'll even just kind of show it up on this thing. If you take a look at it from that angle, it really just peeled off this tiny little bit here. So I think, it's worth looking at. It's worth, is that acceptable performance? And I would say I'm not really happy with it. So let me go into details of why I'm not really happy with this performance. Okay, so first off, I would really like to have seen a lot more expansion. If we just take a look at this bullet and try and find sort of its widest point, it only got out to sort of, I would have hoped that this should have mushroomed maybe double. So from a 0.3 inch diameter bullet, right, I would have hoped that, or 308, I would have hoped that it would have gotten, 0.5, 0.6, something like that in terms of expansion. And what we got was like, 0.46, 0.47, at its widest point. So 0.45 maybe is is the widest point. So that's not a lot of expansion. Also, these bullets, I believe, were designed so that the petals should have flown off it and causing separate wound channels, and maybe little tiny pieces broke off, but they really didn't. And again, I was firing, this was loaded to fire with about 2,700 feet per second, which I thought was enough. And maybe at 275 yards, it just wasn't going fast enough. So what I'm going to next look at is these hammer bullets, which are a little bit lighter. They're 150 2-grain bullets, and actually I'm going to keep loading these up, and they have a new one that's come out that has just a little bit bigger hollow point hole, and I'm going to use those, and I've heard they have excellent expansion at lower velocities, so you can shoot out at even longer and longer ranges. And so this just, putting out there a comparison of these two bullets and what they look like. It's basically almost the same length minus the blue tip. So your overall length should go down a little bit, but at any rate, I think just a little bit lighter bullet, and I think that will achieve a little bit higher velocity, which should achieve higher expansion. I have a buddy who used these out of his 30-06 in a deer rifle or on a deer hunt and got excellent expansion and terminal ballistics on it. So why don't you put your comments down in the chat? Are you using TTSX, or are you using the new LRX from Barnes, which is supposed to be a long range caliber and expands at lower velocities? Have you checked out the new Hornady CX? Or do you have much experience with these hammer bullets? I had been working up our load. I just wasn't real confident in its grouping before I went out hunting. Otherwise, I would have used these this year, so I'll have to use them next year and experiment with them. But leave your comments below, like, share this video, and let me know what you think. Thank you.